Welcome to Another Mother Runner, your best running friend in podcast form. We do all the talking, even on the uphills. I'm your host, Sarah Bowen Shea. I'm joined today by Liz Waterstraat. Hello, Liz, or should I say aloha?
Aloha, Sarah.
So you are fresh off a big family trip to Hawaii for spring break. And I was fortunate enough to get a video from you. I love it when you send me videos. With updates, funny things that will make me laugh. In that video that you sent me, though, you talked about you had just finished a 6-mile run walk, a workout I admit I was a bit surprised you'd done.
Yes, well, it was vacation. And as I said in the video, which, by the way, you are on a very select list to get those videos. It's vacation. There's no structured workouts. There's no working hard. There's no staring at your watch. It was run, walk. It was take pictures of the ocean, stop and get a drink, stop and walk because you're just tired from vacation activities and festivities. So, yeah, it was a lot of running and a lot of walking. And honestly, it was some of the slowest running I have done in a long time. And it was thoroughly enjoyable.
Oh, excellent. Yes, in the video you said you really shouldn't work too hard on vacation. I was like, well, Coach Liz says that. That's going to become my guiding mantra when I go on vacation now.
You shouldn't work hard ever. No, once or twice a week, you do a harder thing in each sport that you might do. But the bulk of everyone's training should be easier, enjoyable. There should be no shame or hesitation to stop to take in a beautiful view or to get a drink.
Nice. Okay. We all need that tattooed on our forearm so we can look down and see it. I lived that credo in the months off between AMR 1.0 and AMR 2.0, let's say. I had the great fortune to go to Southeast Asia with my family, all 3 kids, plus the husband went along. And we went to Cambodia, Laos, and Bangkok. And I made the very conscious decision to not bring running clothes. I did, granted, because it was going to be very hot there. I guess I had shorts that I could, in a pinch, if I suddenly got really twitchy, I could have gone running in. But I did bring my true swimsuit, my lap swimsuit, goggles, and cap. And because I knew that all the properties we were staying at had a pool. But it wasn't until Bangkok that I finally pulled on the cap and goggles. But in Siem Reap, Cambodia, there was just this beautiful pool that I didn't deem it long enough to put my face in. So I would just do breaststroke with my face up for, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 minutes every morning, and then do my typical warm-up exercises that I do before a workout by the side of the pool. But that was all just really for my mental health. It was just, I'm a Pisces. I love being in water. And it was just a really tranquil, relaxing solo way to start the day. Let's emphasize solo, because for me on vacation, that's a big reason why I want to exercise, is to go off and be by myself.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? And only a runner would understand the idea of not bringing your running shoes, like putting yourself in the penalty box and saying, this is not even an option. I did this for myself once. We went on another family vacation to Sedona in the middle of winter, and we would hike. And there was a moment where I thought, maybe I could just run in my hiking shoes. And it was like, no, stop it. You did not bring these running shoes for a reason. But yeah. You on a family vacation, we all love our family. We all need to honor ourselves and taking care of ourselves by just taking that time out every morning to start the day our way.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yes. All right, Liz. We just need to listen to you on a loop with this, when we all are packing for our vacation or on vacation, because, during the 15 years of Another Mother Runner, we so often heard from women who are like, oh, I'm training for the Chicago Marathon or, the Napa Valley Marathon, whatever. And I'm going to be on vacation with my family for a week. How do I do my marathon training or half marathon training, whatever it is, while on vacation? And it's just like, oh, yeah, well, first and foremost, don't stick to your training schedule. Don't try even to stick to
Yeah.
your training schedule exactly.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because then if that expectation is there that the workout has to go a certain way, then I feel like we put pressure on ourselves and then we might get into a bad mood because we weren't able to do it. And so if it's just open-ended, even when my athletes go on vacation, I really resist posting structured workouts. I just give
Mm.
them the open-ended, listen, do what you can, record what you do so when you come back I can pick up the pieces and help you move forward. But we don't need to add more stress because if you have a family along, vacation is stressful at times because
Hmm.
everybody has needs and you're trying to do your life in a different zip code without all of your normal supplies. And there's eating issues and bathroom issues, lots of timing issues.
I am now transported back to Cambodia, remembering all the, oh, the dairy this and the,
Uh-huh.
will they have enough vegetarian options? And
Yeah.
yeah, uh-huh, yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
All right. Well, today you and I are talking about how to mentally prepare for big athletic events, which is defined differently for everyone. For one gal, it might be her first marathon. For another, her debut sprint triathlon. So, Liz, as you know, you and I are talking about this with one of our favorite repeat
Yes.
guests, Erin Ayala, Ph.D., a sports psychologist and certified mental performance consultant based in Minneapolis. On previous Another Mother Runner episodes, Erin has talked about, among other things, dealing with perfectionism, banishing negative self talk, and post race blues. So now, in a wonderful case of worlds colliding, Erin now hosts a podcast on Feisty Media, AMR's new home. It's called Feisty Women's Performance, which is loaded with credible, science backed insights. Erin is a veteran of numerous marathons and triathlons, and like you, Coach Liz, she's a gravel bike racer. Well, we are so happy to be talking with you again, Erin. Welcome.
Thank you. Always excited to join you for these conversations.
Erin, would you give us a quick refresh of your athletic background?
Yeah. I was thinking about how I'd frame this earlier, and I was like, I think I'm an ultra dabbler at this point in my life, which I'm embracing. Started in 5Ks, which led to marathons probably, 15 years ago now. And then that turned to triathlon, which worked sprint to Ironman, and then did a lot of cycling for a lot of years. A lot of road, especially gravel cycling, but also mountain bike, fat bike, virtual racing on Zwift. And then got burnt out from cycling, returned to running while continuing to cycle. But then I did a sprint triathlon last summer, which was super fun. So I'm doing a little bit of everything. Cycling is like my bread and butter for sure. And then I do running to keep me honest and avoid swimming.
I should try that. What about your professional background?
Professional background, PhD in counseling psychology. So I was trained as a typical therapist, licensed psychologist, and then decided to specialize in sport and work with athletes. And then further specialized via my own doing in working with female endurance athletes. So a lot of my work is really helping women develop a better relationship with sport, and find joy in sport again while continuing to push themselves and reach their goals.
Mm. Mm. Well, that leads right into the let's lay some groundwork question, which are what mental skills, do you need for success or enjoyment? Like, is it things like commitment, concentration, confidence, maybe some other words that don't start with the letter C?
It's hilarious because the first word that comes to mind is curiosity.
Oh,
So we're gonna add a letter.
you can
another
do it.
C
You can
to the
break away
mix.
from C.
Yeah. I think that I don't know if it is a mental skill. It's a self-awareness component. It's knowing your why. And that's so cheesy. We talk about, what is your why? But it's really knowing, like, why am I actually doing this? Because that changes over time. I would bet all three of us started our endeavors for one reason and then continue to do them or different things for other reasons. So I think for all of the listeners, it's asking yourself, like, okay, how do I actually want to show up as an athlete? What does that look like this season? And then how do I want to show up as like a parent, a employee, a supervisor, manager, like all the roles that you have. that's a huge skill, because then you can figure out what the game plan is after that. And then another skill that really comes in is self-compassion, which is so hard. I like to think of it as self-respect. You know, being able to lean into mistakes rather than seeing them as like a failure or a reflection of character or how good or bad you are as an athlete. So just being kind to yourself.
I love that. All right, so let's divide our conversation into preparation during training, and then we'll shift as we keep talking to say a few days leading up to the event. And I will say that we're not going to talk about the event itself because that's a whole nother podcast in and of itself. So when someone is in the planning stages of registering for a type or a distance of race they've never done before, are there any sort of mental prep or exercises that they can do to determine if they're ready for that next step?
Ooh. Have I told you about my favorite scary, joyful, new framework? Have I talked about that before?
I don't think so.
So one of the things I love is I'll ask, and I do this myself, is think of a race that's a little bit scary, where it puts you outside of your comfort zone, where you're like, this may or may not go down as expected. So it could be a bigger, longer distance or discipline, something that's like, again, it's going to challenge you and push you. And it may or may not go as planned. And then a joyful race. So something just fills your bucket, whether it's because of the location or the vibes or the community or whatever it is that they do, where you just come back like fully charged. And then new. And so how are you going to grow as an athlete? So I think of those three things and with my athletes and kind of planning their seasons. And then in terms of that readiness component, it's a lot of self-awareness and self-reflection, but then it's asking yourself, like, what's getting in the way of me registering for this? Because there are real barriers, right? It's like some people, like Ironman training, that is a beast of a task. And it's not even the race itself. It's everything leading up to it and how that affects family and work and laundry backup along the household and stuff. Like, it takes over your life for several months. And so just being real in terms of like, okay, if I sign up for this, what is it going to take for me to train so that I can show up in a way that I'm proud of, where I know that I did a good job preparing? And I think that is a conversation that needs to be had with yourself, with family, kind of your inner circle, with coach, if you've got a coach, mentors, and then even just kind of asking yourself, like, again, why am I doing it? So it's, and then learning from it along the way, it's like, I love racing, and I've gone in phases where I do way too much and then not enough. So it's like learning from each season, what worked last season and what didn't, and then correcting and adjusting for the next season.
I think we put a lot into getting our body ready with recovery, strength training, and the workouts. But what are athletes possibly missing as far as getting their brain ready for the new challenge?
Oh my gosh, so much. So much. We forget about it. I think because we're so busy. We're so busy bebopping around and taking care of our to-do list and figuring out who's got the kids, who's picking up the kids after school, or like, all of the things. I think women especially have a really hard time prioritizing themselves with like the mental work, because we're so busy taking care of so many other things, whether it's work or family or home or life. And so I think in terms of kind of the mental work and getting your brain in shape, this is so hard to do, but slowing down and taking some time to really like reflect. And it could be mindfulness meditation is the most underwhelming, but the most like, it is so effective. The research is like unheard of. It's amazing when you look at the actual effect sizes and how big of a difference this makes for performance, but also psychological well-being, quality of life, lower depression and anxiety symptoms, all of the things. But for women to be able to sit down like even 10 minutes a day and just meditate, like that's really hard to do. So that is the number one recommendation that I have. Breath work is great. But then even things like really intentional goal setting, where they're setting process goals for kind of the lead up. It's not even the race itself, but like, how do I want to show up as an athlete while I'm training and preparing for this event? Process goals are really important mental prep because it helps you kind of stay on track as you're preparing.
And how about the role that journaling can play in training and event prep?
I was actually watching the women's NCAA championship yesterday and watching, fangirling over Ilona Mayer. And one of the things she talked about was journaling. And I was like, yes, like coming from a rugby player, like Olympic rugby. And she was like asking the other panelists, right? It was the kind of courtside commentary. One of the things I think that's important is when it comes to any of the mental skills and tools, there are probably hundreds that we could think of. I mean, really dozens when you can think of the core component. For any of the listeners, like there's no one right way to do kind of that mental work and the mindfulness, the prep work, the inner work. Do what works for you. So if journaling sounds awful, one, give it a shot. Try it, stay curious, right? But if you try to stick with it and it's not your vibe, like that's okay. Find your thing. Kind of when people talk about the best kind of exercises is the one you'll do. And so any of the sports psych stuff is similar. That said, journaling is great. And one of the reasons is because it really increases your self-awareness in terms of what's going well and what's worth improving. And it does not have to be in a beautifully designed notebook or journal with like the perfect pen and color coding. It can be if that's your vibe, right? But it can be like an Excel spreadsheet or Post-it notes or scrap pieces of paper. It's just the taking time to write down what went well, what's worth improving, how did I feel, and then things like, what did I eat? How did I fuel for this one? What were the course conditions like? Because the time is only, I mean, I know you both know this, but the time is such a tiny sliver of race day. Because if you had 20-mile-per-hour headwinds, like your bike split isn't going to tell you anything. And so you have to think about the context. We also know journaling for gratitude is wildly helpful. And just looking around and being more grateful for your surroundings and your body and what you can do. So I am a big fan of journaling for people who are willing to give it a shot.
All right.
In February, you did an entire episode on sleep, so we know there's a lot to say there. Can you boil it down a bit and elaborate on how sleep factors into a person's brain and body being ready for the challenge of either the training or the race itself?
Yeah. Sleep is so important. I think we're starting to feel a little bit of a shift in society where people are a little less likely to brag about how little sleep they're getting. I did my postdoc and like residency at a medical center and worked with a lot of med students, and the lack of sleep was really scary. We know that sleep helps with executive functioning. It helps with emotion regulation. It helps with muscle recovery and repair. And so I think in terms of how it helps us be ready for a challenge, it really kind of helps us repair the damage of our day-to-day activities and recalibrate so that we can get back in there the next day. So the more sleep we're getting, and the thing that's interesting is more research is suggesting, and a lot of sleep scientists will tell you this, that the focus is more on the quality over the quantity, and consistency over quantity. So, a lot of folks are saying our brains love routines, right? Like they want to make things as efficient as possible for us during the day. And so if we can go to bed at a relatively similar time every night and wake up in a similar time in the mornings, we're doing ourselves a huge favor. Our brain is way more likely to serve us throughout the day. It helps with everything.
All right, let's take a brief break to hear from our sponsors. Please show your support and dedication to this show by shopping these brands, and thank you.
Let's shift to the days and hours leading up to the big events. Last, we all know that sometimes training doesn't go as planned or expected. So, Erin, what do you suggest for folks who find themselves in that situation before the race?
Yeah, I think, this is a tough one. I can use myself as an example. I did attempted to do Mid-South double this March. I also attempted it last year. And so last year, Mid-South Double is a 50K run on the Friday. And it's an early season race, middle of March. And then it's a 100-mile gravel bike race on Saturday. Last year, I felt really prepared and excited. And the race was canceled the second day due to wildfires rolling through Stillwater, Oklahoma, which was definitely the right decision to cancel that race. So I was like, okay, I'm going back this year. And I had my training all lined up. I was really excited to get after it, to go in with lots of fitness and knock this thing out of the park. I really wanted to get on the podium. And then January in Minneapolis hit, which meant a lot of socio-political, cultural turmoil with the immigrant enforcement operations on the ground. And my body and my nervous system very strongly reacted to everything that was happening. And I could not train in the way that I wanted. It wouldn't have been in my best interest, physically or mentally. And I was also supporting supervisees and mentees who are learning for the first time as therapists how to care for the community when the community is experiencing this type of stress and trauma. And so there was a lot going on. And I really had to adjust my goals as a result. And so I consulted with my coach, basically just told her, I'm pivoting. We're going for vibes and we're going for completion. And so that's what I did. It was kind of like, what is the best I can do given the circumstances? Because I knew that trying to push through would not have been good for my mental or physical health. And so then race day came. I did all of the things. I had my process goals, my performance goals, my outcome goals. I had my nutrition locked in. I was doing all of the things for paces, and I felt really good. And the day was beautiful. Not a whole lot of wind. And so this was Friday, 50K run. I was on pace until like mile 20. And then my stomach/uterus came in with a vengeance. And I was like, well, now what? So I had to adjust and pivot and I think part of it is me getting older. Like, I just don't, I don't want to just push through and like punish myself because I'm not that attached to the goals. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to walk, and continue to hydrate and fuel and see how we do. And I just never started running again. So I walked the final 10 miles.
Wow.
But it was also a really intentional decision. And the thing that is so cool, I have no regrets. I don't remember what my finishing time was, but I said hi to so many cows and dogs in the gravel roads and a goat farm. And I like enjoyed the sun and the trees blooming for the first, which I haven't seen in months. Right. So then it gets better. We had a snowpocalypse come to Minnesota. And as I'm finishing the 50K run /walk/shuffle, I start getting text messages from Delta saying my flight has been canceled on the way home. And I was like, well, this throws another wrench into the mix. And long story short, what ended up happening is flights were canceled until the next Tuesday. And so it was either me having to miss 2 hours or 2 days of work and dealing with a lot of, more Airbnb costs, expense, blah, 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 or renting a car and driving home to Minnesota on Saturday instead of doing the race. And that's what I did.
Wow.
And I'm glad that I did it because the interstate was closed until like Monday morning. Like, it would have been awful for me. So that's such a great example of like, sometimes things just do not go as planned, and there will always, always, always be more races. So next year is my year.
Third time's the charm.
Third time's the charm. But it's like all of those situations I could have just fought like tooth and nail and been like, no, like I committed to this race. I have to train. Like, says who? Or like, no, I committed to this pace and I wanted this PR for the 50K. Like, why? It's you step back and have this bigger picture perspective, and then you realize like, I'm doing this for fun and for community and for my physical and mental health. So doing it the other way, like, that's not going to help. So.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, sometimes I try to calm myself by framing my nerves, my pre-race jitters, as a sign that I care about the race and all the work that I've put in.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's a legit strategy, or am I just lying to myself?
It's a fantastic strategy.
Okay.
Honestly, 1000%. The nerves are a sign we care, for sure. And it, like, I was listening to a triathlete share that, they knew that it would be time to retire when they were no longer nervous before races, because that was a sign that they no longer cared. And they've been a professional triathlete for 14 years at this point. And that was really cool to hear. I do think that as athletes, it's important to have a healthy relationship with nerves and anxiety. Because if we're not anxious, then there isn't really, like, I don't know, it's okay to not be anxious, but when we're anxious, it's because we care a lot about the outcome and how we're going to show up. We spent a lot of time preparing for it. One of the things I often say to clients is, does the feeling fit the facts? And the feeling of being nervous before a race totally fits the facts, right? Totally makes sense.
Nice.
With so much, and I'd even argue too much data at our fingertips these days, how do you suggest athletes use it to prepare for a big race?
Yeah, there's data everywhere. It depends on the athlete. I think some athletes hate it, which is I'm fine with. It's really interesting. Some of the, like, I guess most experienced / most successful athletes I work with, and by successful, I mean like sustainability and strong results over the long run, without significant injuries and things like that. They're the ones that often take the data like not very seriously because they know themselves best. I also love data, and I've had to learn, like, it's just one tool. It's just one piece of information. And so I think we have to consistently revisit our relationship with data, kind of like social media. It can be really helpful in some contexts, but it can also really get the best of us in others. And so knowing, like, how much is too much. And my personal opinion is that it's too much when we're no longer making decisions for ourselves and we're letting the data, like, decide for us. That's not one of the skills. Like, as athletes, we need to be able to make those decisions. And so I think we have to be careful with it. I'm not a huge fan of Strava just because of the comparison culture. I'm on it, but I follow two people, my mother-in-law and my elderly father. I don't even follow my spouse.
Do they follow you back?
Yeah, they do. And I have a lot of followers, and it's public, and it's totally fine. People can follow me, and they'll see like 15-minute miles some days and 9-minute miles another. Like I try really hard to demonstrate like the messiness of data in life and sport. And if I have a run that's not going well and I'm walking home, I'm recording that thing. Because I want to model the fast and the slow, the good and the not so great. I think that's really important. And so that's another thing with data is, like, you never know the whole story ever. So be careful when you're looking at other people's data.
Oh, you've said that on the perfect morning. So today I went out on, I haven't been running. I've been using my Elliptigo instead because I've been having some knee issues. And so I go out on a 3-mile run, and I in the final mile, ran into this couple that I just absolutely adore. And they hadn't heard the news about another mother runner coming under Feisty. So I was telling them that, and they had questions. So, it took a little bit. Well, I thought I had paused my GPS, but I didn't. I hadn't, and I don't have it on auto pause. And I'm like, oh, for the love of God. So now, now my final mile shows is 21 minutes.
Totally. Yes.
I'm like, yeah, I was, not speedy today, but I was not a 21-minute mile.
Right. And the thing is, like, society tells us we have to, like, justify that. Like, we always need an explanation.
Oh, right.
Right?
I thought, should I like put the verbiage in, to like change it to, run and ran into Katrina,
And so many people, I have so many, especially teens, who do that. And I'm like, what if you unapologetically post like your fastest and your slowest, and you don't have to explain either? Because I also see a lot of women who have a hard time owning the successes, and they'll attribute it to luck or weather or I don't know what, I just like went for it and got really lucky today. Like, no, you worked your butt off for that result. So give yourself credit. And also, if you walk the 10 miles of a 50K, like, yeah, girl, get it. Like, that's cool, right? So I think we're getting a little bit better with some of that, but we still have a lot of work to do with that comparison stuff and kind of what do other people think of me, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the other day on my Elliptigo, I was listening to an audiobook and someone mentioned a vision board. And so then my mind somersaulted back to the one I made the day before I went after my marathon PR. And I still have that poster board. It is covered with cutout headlines and photos. So, two-part question. My first part is, how the heck is someone expected to make a vision board in these days that magazines are basically extinct? And two, do you have any vision board making pointers?
Oh my gosh, yes. I've never had this question before and I love it so much. I love vision boards because I think it's a reminder of what we're working toward and why we're working toward it. That said, again, there's a big caveat, like, is it a vision board or like a Fitspiration board? Because that's where we can get, right? So we can get into this like dark and stormy, like motivation for the body we're working toward or the fitness or this or that. And that's why I'm always like, go back to your value system. Why are you doing this? And so I think vision boards, it's a lot harder to do them now because of what you mentioned, because how many of us have magazines lying around?
I mean, I don't know. Here in Portland, you can definitely go to stores and find vintage magazines, but then do you really want to cut that up, you know?
True.
And
yes, true. So one thing that we've done with some of our clients, which is super fun, Canva.
Okay.
And so, and the thing that's really cool about it is you can then size it for your desktop or your phone and use it as the wallpaper. And that is super fun because then you can also change it up as often as you want to, frankly. But I've done it with some clients where we'll do a vision board like for a specific race that they're training for. And so they might include a mantra or a focus word, their process goals, like for that month. What are the kind of the reminders, but then they might also include like course profile or like a view that they're really looking forward to. I'm trying to think. I've done some where it's kind of like a reward that they're working toward, like a new pair of shoes or like, something kind of fun for gear. If like I, get my workouts in, then I'm treating myself to this thing. So I think that's one of my pointers for nowadays vision boards is like consider using Canva because it has the like background image like remover. So it kind of gives you that like scrapboarding type of feel that old school vision boards have where you can add different layers. And then if you really want to get artsy and creative with it, you can with like outlines, you can change it to black and white. It's pretty fun.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was up in my younger daughter's room yesterday and I did notice she had a big stack of magazines because my kids are big collagers. And so I'm like, I could use those for a vision board one day.
Yeah. Stickers are also still like stickers aren't going anywhere. Those are huge.
So there you go.
Yeah. Like I mean, a lot of my clients with myself too, with water bottles, putting, especially on, like the Stanleys or Awala water bottles, where they're like the stainless steel. Yeah. So that can be fun for like vision board vibes. Is like stickers that remind you of kind of the thing that you're working toward or what you're doing or just for fun.
Oh, I practically need to get a new water bottle just so I have more real estate for stickers because I'm like, I love this sticker, but I don't have a square inch of space left on my water bottle.
Laptops too, like stickers all over laptops. Like, lots of options.
All right. Well, when I used to race more often, I would get so consumed with anxiety and nerves the day before a race and particularly the morning of that I ended up foregoing brushing my teeth before a race the morning of because it would always make me gag and nearly puke. I can totally call up when Dimity and I did 2007 Nike Women's Marathon and being in that hotel in San Francisco and just whoop, whoop,
Totally.
almost into the sink.
Yeah.
So what can nervous Nellies like myself do other than maybe not brushing their teeth?
Oh, this is such a great question. To all the listeners where this is a thing, like, you are not alone. This is huge and people don't talk about it. And it's also something where, like, just think positive, just believe in yourself. Don't worry about it. Like, nerves will go away once the things start. But, like, if you're throwing up your race morning nutrition and your hearty bowl of oatmeal, like, then you're worried about, there's so many things. Like, so if we think about the nerdy biology behind this, I like to think of it as a teeter-totter or a seesaw. We've got the sympathetic nervous system, and then we've got the parasympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic is like your fight or flight. This is like, saber-toothed tiger is coming from me and I need to get the heck out of Dodge. And then you've got your rest or digest. And that's where you're like hanging at home, watching Netflix with your pup, on the couch, just chilling. We don't want either of those to be too high on race day. Because if you're way too chill, like, you need to, like, I mean, for some people, cool. But, like, if you're going for performance, like, get your body revved up and ready to go. But if you're freaking out, like, you are not going to perform at your best. And people will call this the optimal zone of functioning, or individual IZOF is a very common acronym in the sports psych world, individual zone of functioning. And everyone's is going to be a little bit different. But if we think about the sympathetic nervous system, when it's really, really revving up, thoughts are going wild. We start to make really silly decisions and we question everything, and start making emotional decisions. We'll second guess our gear choices, how we're lacing our shoes, what sports bra we should wear. Like, should I do this with my heart rate monitor? What about my hair? Like, bib place, like, all of the things that even if we've done it a million times. So that's your fight or flight system revving in, right? Heart rate is going to be a lot higher. I can't tell you how many people will joke like, oh, heart rate was at 160 before the gun went off. Like, yep, that's common. GI distress, which we'll circle back to, having to go to the bathroom 1 million times, feeling like you're going to throw up, like all of those things, the gagging, like that's the sympathetic nervous system. Cold flashes, hot flashes, sweatiness, like temperature regulation, right? All of these things are happening. And then our respirations also get really shallow and fast. And if we think about it, we can't change our thinking. We can try, but I will get into debates with people. Like, it's like saying, don't think about ice cream. And the first thing you're going to do is thinking about ice cream. So we can't really control our thoughts. We can't really directly control our heart rate and just tell it to slow down. We can't tell our GI system to chill out. The only lever we actually have is our breathing. And this is why so many therapists will be like, just breathe. But here's the deal. Nothing new on race day. So don't expect to show up on race day morning feeling super, super like nauseous and then expect deep breathing to work, because it won't. Just like anything else, you've got to practice so that when you need to use it to really bring yourself down, it's actually effective because you know how to do it and you're not looking for the fix. You're doing it because of the process to regulate. And so one of the best analogies that I've heard is it's kind of like a DSLR camera for a photographer. They get this really nice camera with a lot of functions. Auto usually works when it's in auto mode. You'll get some really high quality photos and shots, but sometimes you need to turn off the auto and go manual and change things up specifically based off of your circumstances or kind of the photo that you're looking for. For us as athletes, sometimes we have to go into manual mode because our auto is not working for us. And that's what some of the deep breathing practices will do, or what I like to say, low and slow breathing. There's a lot of really amazing research on this. Dr. Ina Kassan out of Harvard is doing a lot on biofeedback and mindfulness. She has, I want to say the book is called Biofeedback and Mindfulness for Performance. And she's incredible. And so one of the things that she'll say is do it. This is a lot, so buckle up. 20 minutes a day. As I talk about how none of us have time for any of these things, right? Right. But she says low and slow breathing. which is basically, it's not like the deep breath. It's just slow down and in little chunks throughout the day for up to 20 minutes where you observe your breath, you don't judge it, you stay curious, and then you start to get used to applying it on a regular basis. So that is a very long-winded answer for the nausea question. The other thing, two more things I talk about that. You can tell I love talking about this stuff. The other
I'm here
thing,
for it. I'm here
I know,
for it.
right? Is you plan for it to show up. So so many athletes, like just human beings, we like to avoid difficult thoughts and feelings. So we will think about, I hope this doesn't happen to me on race day. And one of the phrases we often use in sports psychology is what you resist persists. And so the more you think about it, not wanting it to happen, the more likely it is to happen. And so instead, and I kind of say this like tongue in cheek because it's just a thing, you're like, well, here's the race day nausea, like showing up right on time. Here we go. Like, I'm familiar with this part of the story. This is how it goes. And then when it shows up, it's not that big of a deal because you've planned for it and actually built it into your morning routine. So then the final thing is really locking in your race day morning routine and using that routine for all of your long runs, especially with fueling and nutrition. So like race day nutrition, if you can have a breakfast that will work for you on like most days and like basically make it a little more palatable. So it might be a smoothie. Is something like that where it's going to be easier for you to get down on race day morning. And then the more, again, our brain likes routines. So if that's what you do every Saturday or every Sunday morning, then on race day, your brain is like, okay, this is what we do now. I'm used to this, right? And then the final quick fix, if none of those things work, scratch high carb mix can be a really great kind of like parachute because it's got a lot of carbs. You can kind of dial, the grams of carbs, but you can easily get 100 or more carbs in a bottle, and it's not too sweet. It's just like a subtle lemon lime or raspberry flavor, and that works pretty well as a last minute call for help.
Okay, good. And I do have to say I love all your rhymes. Rest, digest,
fight, flight,
Persist.
all of the things, persist.
Yeah, persist.
Yep.
So, Erin, I'm thinking about the athlete who has to test themselves in their final workouts on race week. And maybe it's insecurity, maybe it's self-sabotage. What do you say to that athlete?
Oh, man. So the final workouts leading up to a race are never a test. That's always like, oh, and there's so many listeners. I've also fallen into this trap where it's like the 20-mile run, the final run is like a test as to whether or not you're ready for race day. Like, no, that's not the day of the test. The day of the quote unquote test is race day, right? So the purpose of the long run is to get your body used to that fatigue and to get that training stimulus under your belt. So you should not feel great during that 20-mile run. If you do, that's amazing, right? But the purpose is fatigue and training stress. So I think it's really, having a good and healthy communicative relationship with coach. For the coaches listening, very clearly explaining to your athletes like what you're looking for that day. And then for the ones who are really big on self-sabotage, you can, give them homework, or for the athletes, give yourself homework, the what went well strategy of just asking after each of your workouts, especially as you start to get more nervous and feel more pressure, what went well today? It could be nutrition, it could be pacing, it could be doing the full warm-up, it could be doing, dynamic exercises before, after, like what are the things that went well? And there are so many things that athletes can work on to be a quote unquote better athlete. And so we have to think about all of those things, not just pace. So find the little things. It might be like, wow, my heart rate really dropped in between those two intervals. I'm recovering really quickly, right? Like, what are the little things that you can, or like, well, my turnover was really good on that final interval. So look for those types of things, give yourself credit for them, because that is, it takes practice. It really does.
Okay, so like I said, we are not talking about the race itself. So, but I do want to skip to one question about post-race. And, as I've said, I always remember the nerves pre-race, but I often would forget the elation I feel post-race. And when I would feel it, I'm thinking back to our Hilton Head retreat, and I did a 10K. It was on the hard packed sand at the beach. It went really, really well, and I honestly was pretty surprised it went really well. And I was just hopped up. I just was walking on clouds afterwards. How do you bottle that and keep it until the next big undertaking?
Oh, I really wish you could. I don't know if you can. I think that's what keeps us going. I think that's like what keeps us coming back for more. One of the things I often say to athletes is just like, by the sake of, just because we're athletes, we're signing up for more highs and lows. And those are the highs, that sense of elation. And so when we feel them, we've got to feel them and really like embrace them and accept them and savor them. Because that is a part of the process. And this is a very meta answer, but it's like those really low lows are also a part of the process. And we have to be willing to feel those too, instead of trying to push them away. And so I think it's like, how do we bottle it up? There's a strategy I like to use, flavor and savor, another rhyme for you, where it's like you think about your values, like what's the vibe that I want to go for today? And then whenever you are leaning into that thing, you savor it. So I'll give you an example. It might be like, oh, I just want to be really helpful and altruistic today. And like pick a thing do it for your long runs. It's like a fun challenge. And then like you say hello, or you greet everyone, or you compliment everyone you pass on your run, and then savor it. Right. And so those are little ways that you can kind of get that giddiness, and that greater feeling of good, where you get really excited about kind of this thing that you're doing, and you're not so focused on your splits.
I love that. Well, also because it kind of, freaks some people out. So then you get a little.
I saw one. This was really impressive. It was an Instagram reel where it was the ABC challenge, and it was going through the ABCs where every time, and I think it looked like it was a Grand Canyon hike or something, like a long hike. And every time you pass someone, you have to say something that starts with the next letter of the alphabet. So, right? Wow. So like A would have been like awe-inspiring, huh? And then the B might be like, beautiful day out, isn't it? And then C could be like,
can you believe it?
Can you believe it? Right. And that is like, do that for long runs or rides. Like, oh gosh, that's going to be that's like, yeah, you have to stay on top of your toes for that one. But it was so fun. And then they were cracking up in between, right? Because they were taking turns. So they'd be like, okay, like, Sarah, you've got A, Liz, you've got B, I'll take C. And then they would rotate. So they didn't know what the next person was going to say. And then watching how people responded was also really funny. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, Erin, you proved once again how delightful it is to talk with you. So, so folks, if you're listening, needing more insight and advice from Dr. Erin Ayala, listen to Feisty Women's Performance wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening and maybe watching on YouTube. Our show is a production of Another Mother Runner and Feisty Media. For more on Feisty and our other shows, events, workshops, and Feisty Fest, where we are hoping we can get Erin there, will be in mid-September. Visit feisty.co. That's feisty.co. Thanks to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.